Money with Santosh Sirur.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Sound of Money. Today on The Sound of Money, we're going to talk a little serious issue actually, but something that could, have a massive solution ahead in corporates and in SMEs especially. To be very honest, this is not a direct sound of money as in an issue, but it is very much related. It's very peripheral, but at the same time, at the center of attention when it comes to corporate progress, corporate profits, and everything that really need to move ahead in corporate life. And we're going to talk about mental health, right? And to begin with, I happened to be reading a piece of, advice of a doctor years back, where one of the corporate employees happened to ask the doctor, and it was a typical question answer column in a newspaper, where the doctor was asked, I'm having this stress, I'm having workload and blah, 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 and I'm earning so-and-so, and you're like, whatever, typical corporate life issues that came up on that print. And the doctor was asked, hey, what's the solution? And I really liked that answer, what the doctor mentioned, and it really etched on my brains actually. What he said was in just two words. He simply said, earn less. I think that was a very right way of putting across the point when we have to deal with so much of corporate stress, corporate life, as we all know. And to talk more about this on this show of The Sound of Money, again, a very special episode of The Sound of Money, I'm joined from Bangalore by Mr. Manoj Chandran. Manoj is the founding CEO of Impact Sector or NGO White Swan Foundation, which he's been associated in the last 9 years. But very recently, he has set up his own, he's a co-founder of a startup, which is called by the name of Matialo. And this also focuses more on employee mental health. And we're going to talk about employee mental health. He's not going to get into the medical aspects of it. But first and foremost, let me welcome Manoj on this show. Hi, Manoj, and welcome to The Sound of Money.
Santosh, thank you so much. And it's a privilege to join Sound of Money, which I really respect and appreciate.
Thank you, Manoj, for being on the show. Manoj, I've been really reading some very startling facts, about what apparently is that the World Health Organization estimates that depression and anxiety disorder, especially in corporate life, right? It can actually cost the world economy almost about $1 trillion and lost in productivity actually. But at the same time, if one invests in employee support in whatever form and shape it could be, then actually the benefits of this could be more than 4 times that investment, and how true it could be. And we do come across cases. I've been hearing, whether in any organization, whether it is an organized or an unorganized sector, of hearing of bullying, harassment, discrimination, workload, work stress, and especially, the topic of this show at a time when we are hopefully coming out of COVID and then going on with the BAU 100%, or even could be a hybrid work life. But I think that issue has been more focused in these last 2-3 years, where you had the COVID tensions anyway, then you had to work from home, you had the personal issues at home, and at the same time manage the corporate issues. But and that is something which we want to talk to you and discuss with you, because you come across, I'm sure, so many people across. So if I have to ask you, my first question would be, is there an awareness now on this kind of an issue, or do you see still that kind of need to a lot more maturity yet to come in?
That's a great question to start our conversation with, actually, Santosh, because when we speak about mental health, the first thing that comes to our mind is about awareness. And so the silver lining, let me start with that. Yes, you're right. Over the last 5 years or so, 5 to 6 years, I've seen a slow but steady increase in the level of awareness in the society about the need for us to focus on mental health and mental wellness. There are many reasons. There are many reasons because we've seen the government announcing the Mental Health Care Act in 2017. A lot of influencers, public influencers, have for the first time been seen speaking about their vulnerabilities and experiences with mental health issues. Media has been really in the forefront of writing and reporting and educating people on mental health care consistently. So over the last, particularly 3 or 4 years. So these are really bright side of the space, and this is something that is much required. But then again, if you look at the scale at which this has to really work for us to see really an element of change, it is still happening in pockets of our society, pockets of geographies.
Yeah.
But the lack of awareness or the result of our not having right knowledge about mental health care is so rampant and widespread that the kind of energy funds that are existing must now spread very quickly across the society, I would say.
Yeah. But Manoj, also, this issue itself is very sensitive in the first place. Whether we talk or not is the issue, right? Whether we raise this or not. And most of the time it's a discussed issue. If at all discussed, then it's within the corridors, on the way back home, between colleagues, and kahe ki bole ki nahi, what is the issue? Right. And more so importantly, something very significant that happened and has been happening and hopefully should stop is I come across a lot of these, especially when I talk to my friends and relatives in India. It's about the fact that, you know what, your boss says, oh, you know what, you're saving so much of time on your commuting, 2 hours of train or whatever commuting. Then why not log in and I call you right at 7 a.m. in the morning, weekends, that kind of mental. So a lot of people always say that, the workload or the work stress is a different thing that can be handled, that can be managed. The issue is about the psychological stress. Is that something that you've come across very much in your experience from people who you've spoken to?
So absolutely, Sandhu. One is that, workload, if you have to take from that as a possible area, workload can be a certain trigger for mental health issues or psychological stress or psychological distress, emotional distress, as we call it. So it is about the environment we create. It is the environment that we are living in and how prepared we are in being able to deal with the challenges of that environment. Yeah. Look at COVID. What did COVID do, and why did COVID create a spurt in emotional health issues in the society? Because we were not tuned to or adapt. We're not ready to adapt a sudden and drastic shifts in our lifestyles. Yeah, we were asked to be at home and we were asked to continue to work.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we were not ready for it. We were not trained for it. So, which is exactly what happens at workplace stress or increased workload or any kind of environment which we are not prepared for. That is how the environment really affects our emotional well-being. Okay. The question here is again about preparedness, how healthy we are. I mean, at the end of the day, mental health is healthcare. So like any other health issue, the moment we have a health issue, what do? We try to manage that ourselves. If we have little bit of fever and all, we know exactly what kind of first aid needs to be provided to ourselves. But if we can't manage, we reach out to a professional. Exactly the kind of thing must happen in mental health care. Yeah, we must be able to immediately say that I need a professional. I need somebody to help me with my emotional distress issue or mental health problem. But the journey between my realization that I have a mental health issue and finally saying that I have to reach out to a mental health professional is far too long. Yeah, and it takes years sometimes. And our single biggest objective should be in the mental health care space is that how do we quicken the process for people with mental health issues and emotional distress issues? And that is the key important problem statement and challenge that we must address in mental health care.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, when see, one is the medical aspect of which we're not going to discuss because that's for the doctors and the advisors to give more, psychiatrists to give advice. What we want to discuss is what kind of ecosystems are organizations planning to have, if not started by now, and the ones who already have started, what has been the experience that you have come across, and what kind of a level playing field, if I have to say, is created within that organizational space where employee comes out at the same time the employer as well gives due attention and also brings out the aspects that need to be addressed by that employee. It works both ways. Yeah. What has been that experience from your side?
So before I answer the question, I would also want to tell you that why is that we must talk about the non-clinical aspect of it. You may have seen the data, Santosh, that this is the National Mental Health Care Survey done by NIMHANS in Bangalore, one of the largest mental health care surveys done in India in 2016. Yeah. It says that 90% of people with mental health issues will never receive professional help. Yeah. And we also know, and this is not the survey, but we also know in general, 15% of those who will eventually receive professional help do so with a prolonged delay of time. Yeah. Now, all the challenges which keep 90% away from receiving professional help are non-clinical. Most of them. Of course, there are issues like service infrastructure is not enough, adequate. There are far less mental health professionals in the country. All that is, of course, there. But the challenges that a person have to traverse the step 1 to 9 that they have to take before they take step 10 to go and call a mental health professional is what we have to address, which is why it becomes important that we discuss this today. To answer your question specifically from an organizational point of view, and I know, and I also believe that organizations and workplaces are one of the most suited environments for us to address these challenges that people with mental health issues face. Because there are many energy points and there are many things that are happening in the right manner, which we could leverage to solve those problems and the social and emotional challenges for those with emotional distress. So what could they do? One of the first things that we must look at from an organization to address employee mental health care is that we identify the challenges of those with mental health issues in their organization, which are social in nature, which are environmental in nature, and address those. Like I said, that we are not ready to speak out about our own problems. I don't know who to speak to. The moment I have been told or I realize that I have a mental health issue, the first thing that happens to my mind is that of confusion, that of denial. I want to deny to myself that I have a problem because that's the most convenient way for me to handle or adopt or cope with the problem. I don't want to tell anybody. So can organizations therefore make sure that there is a social ecosystem and environment where every single person in the environment know that they have a role to play? So an employee mental health care program, therefore, cannot be successful if that whole program is addressed only to those who have a mental health issue or have a history of mental health issue. It must engage every single employee in the organization, because when it comes to mental health care, everyone is a stakeholder. The moment I have a view of mental health or mental illness, the moment I have certain attitude towards those with mental health issues, I should be aware that those views and attitudes are key decision-making factors for my colleague who is going through emotional distress. They decide, make a decision whether they should open up and speak about their problem. They make a decision whether they should seek professional help based on my attitude as a co-worker in the workplace. So you can see how powerful a stakeholder I am as a bystander.
Absolutely.
Therefore, it becomes important and prerogative for the organization to build a program which is engaging every single staff in the organization. Second point I would really make is, typically what happens in a healthcare program is we look at a curative approach. We say that, okay, this program must try to provide access to professionals and access to all the wherewithals which help people find cure for their problem. But like we said, that cure is step 10. Particularly in mental health care, the challenges from 1 to 10 is what organizations and leaders in organizations must enable and empower people with to solve the problem. So can we therefore look at other 3 angles of healthcare, which are preventive, promotive, and rehabilitative also? It's only when we look at all 4 aspects of mental health care can we build a much more robust employee mental health care program, which has a long view of time and not transactional in solving the current problem.
A long-term view should be there. A lot of time, Manoj, I think, is also the fact that it also depends on the boss or the immediate one lines or the 2 ops, right? Where sometimes certain departments, one may create a toxic environment, and that leads to people leaving the firm, not coming on Mondays, falling sick, all kinds of issues that come up. And that's where, to be very honest, if you look at these kind of issues, they're very specific to that department, to that work unit, and really need not be that organization. In fact, the organization may have already got a great ecosystem, but the point is, because your boss has already created a toxic environment, how does one, get out of the rut? I think that's the question a lot of our listeners may have. Any experiences on this front that you come across from other people who you have as a part of the NGO activity?
Great. I think you've nailed it in many ways, actually, Santosh, in terms of where probably we could begin in our journey around employee mental health care. And I'm going to answer this question from 2 perspectives. One is the role of the manager. Many a time we have seen, particularly in middle to large organizations, Santosh, that cases of mental health issues don't even come to the attention of the leadership because it is handled at the manager level.
True.
And because managers have not been skilled in how to handle this, they don't have the education. And we spoke about awareness at the beginning of our conversation.
Yeah.
More important issue that is now coming up is to educate and skill all our stakeholders in the organization. And managers, people managers become one of the most important catalysts in that. And when we skill them and we provide them all the resources and tools to be able to manage such situations, we will be able to then create an ecosystem where we encourage people to open up and speak. They feel what is called emotionally safe or psychologically safe. In being able to, feeling that, okay, I know that I will not be going through a reprisal. Should I speak out about my emotional vulnerability? And manager, therefore, is also skilled to able to make sure that they have created an environment which is empathic, which means that other team members know how to provide that care and support to that one individual in the team who may show and display emotional vulnerability. Now, to answer your second point about what could a team member do should they feel that the toxicity is coming out because of certain work ethics of the manager, which is not known to the rest of the organization. Now, like any other health issue, we will first understand that I think I am going through emotional challenges or emotional difficulties or emotional distress. Let me become self-aware of that, which requires me to have right skills, right knowledge, and right level of unlearning of my current notions on mental health care. And when I do that, I know that, oh, I think I'm going through some stress and I need to act on it. That itself is a big decision. I need to act on it. Once I have permitted myself to act on it, I try to figure out what could possibly be the triggers for this. And if I find that my toxic environment, work environment, whatever be the trigger for that work environment or the toxicity of the environment could be it the manager or the nature of the work or the organization and others, I will then figure out, is there a way for me to manage that myself? Is there a way for me to handle that myself? If not, then I will seek solutions within the system and plumbings of the organization. It could be what is called employee assistant partner program within the organization, which provides access to counseling psychologists and seek their help to say that I'm going through this issue and I don't know what could possibly be the trigger, but I need someone's help. Or we seek the help of our seniors if we can't reach out to a manager and we feel that I have tried to provide some indication to the manager and they don't seem to be equipped in the right manner to handle that. I reach out to the seniors, but it is important that I find solutions. I don't stay with the problem for a long period of time, because one of the key elements in mental health care, doctors and psychologists will tell us, is that the earlier we are able to detect signs of emotional distress, the better our chances of recovery are.
True. Okay.
So it is important that we tell ourselves that let me solve this problem. And if I can solve the problem within the system that I'm working in and I need to work in, good. But if not, then I will have to seek solutions without.
Absolutely. So, like as you say, within these kind of preventive measures, where you have open and conversations, encourage open conversations actually, and also have non-judgmental, conversations. I think that's very important. That kind of communication is very important. But to a great extent, right? And even organizations having inclusive policies, you have all the stakeholders and come to, you may have these kind of happenings within organizations which are more structured, which are more large in scale, where you have a good HR and a specific unit that looks into these employee support programs. But I'm sure we have listeners who are within the SME space, who are a relatively unorganized sector, smaller firms, etc., etc. Do these do such people have access, if I may say, to go step out of the organizational space and reach out to some other organizations which are full-time into it? For that matter, like in your case, like Matialo, for that matter, how does that help? What are the avenues one can reach out to? Who are the ones who can reach out to?
So that's a great question, actually, Santosh. There are two reasons, again, why I would say it's an important question to be addressed. Organizations that may not have a support system formally to address issues of emotional distress among employees, we have been encouraging, and I've been telling organizations to make sure that we encourage communities to be built, which share certain experiences among themselves. So that whole sharing and finding solutions collectively itself is a great experience. Yeah. And so if there is a person who has been experiencing emotional distress and vulnerabilities, can that person try and reach out to like-minded people within the organization? May not necessarily have to go to HR. May probably find a colleague who connects with it and is empathetic to this whole cause, and say that, can we build a small cohort of people who come together on a regular basis? Then can we take a formal suggestion to the HR team that can we create an energy point or initiative for us to just start talking? Yeah. Until organization is ready for them to formally support us in some way. It's one element that we could look at. What we call is this cohort is mental health champions. Mental health champions are people who really are on the ground and understand the ground realities of employees' challenges, which are sometimes going to create or trigger mental health issues and all. And what can they do about it? Yeah. Now, to answer your question specifically on how do they find solutions without one of the things, which is why White Swan Foundation was built 9 years ago, Santosh, that when we reached out to people with mental health issues, we found that the delay in reaching out to professionals, and the reason for that is that we make series of wrong decisions around mental health care, be that of our own or that of our loved ones, or as a bystander also. Because of the notions we carry, because of the wrong knowledge that we have about mental health care. So when we really want to reduce what is called the treatment gap, which is 90% of people who are not reaching out to professionals, then the most important requirement here is that we give access to right knowledge. White Swan Foundation was built with a mission of creating and providing access to knowledge on mental health care to the people. We built one of the largest knowledge repositories in the country, accessed by nearly 1 million people every year. And that has really helped people. And people from far-flung areas who reach out to whiteswanfoundation.org and seek the knowledge to know, what should I do? So should there be an employee who going through and experiencing emotional distress in an SME who may not have a support system? The first step to that journey in finding out what they could be doing is to seek the right knowledge. True. Second is the first organization that I'm building now with my co-founder called Matialo.com, is to help organizations build this whole ecosystem. And ecosystem is about making sure that all stakeholders play their constructive role appropriately in enabling a long-term robust employee mental health care program. Many organizations have started looking at employee mental health care program beyond curative measures, which provides access to counseling psychologists, to say that we have to look at preventive measures. We have been guiding and consulting organizations to say that, can you look at your policies? Can we look at different stakeholders and enable each of them by way of skilling them, empowering them, giving them resources and tools? That's the kind of work that needs to happen now.
Absolutely. And Manoj, I think you are on the way there, because your last 9 years of experience working with White Swan, and I'm sure now that you have your co-founder working together to set up this new Matialo, which is very specific and focuses on employee mental health space. I'm sure it's guys like you, foundations and organizations like you, who are really making that groundbreaking difference, because as we see, India is, as an economy, is catching up, building up, it's growing. But what is equally important is the peripheral ecosystem, which is important to, carry on. It's not just the money space that's important, but it's the mind space that is equally important. And I'm sure organizations like yours are going to be really making a groundbreaking effort in this way. All the very best with the launch of Matialo to you and your team. From me, Santosh Sirur, and the rest of the audience, I'm sure this organization will do wonders in coming, and we can always catch up on the progress and bring in more issues on the audience. But for now, thank you so much, Manoj, for joining us on The Sound of Money.
Thank you so much, Santosh, for bringing in and introducing such an important topic on Sound of Money. And which is increasingly leaders are pointing out that if we have to make money for the organization, then our employees must be taken care of.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we come to the end of this episode of The Sound of Money. From me, Santosh Sirur, and Mr. Manoj Chandran. Thank you so much for joining us on The Sound of Money. Bye-bye and take care.
Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.